What do Prince Harry, Rupert Murdoch, and the Washington Post all have in common? Will Lewis. Back in December of 2023, NPR's David Fick wrote about the new Washington Post CEO who showed up in Prince Harry's court filing against News Corp, which is owned by the Murdoch family. The Duke of Sussex alleges that while Will Lewis was brought on to root out corruption in the newsroom for Rupert Murdoch during the phone hacking scandal of 2011, he actually oversaw a cover-up and the mass deletion of millions of emails. This is nothing new. The Guardian wrote about Will Lewis in 2012 and his role as a cleanup campaigner. Line Investigates also wrote about this back in June of 2020 after Will Lewis lost out on the top job as BBC's Director General. BBC ended up hiring internally. Whether these allegations against him hurt his chances, we don't know. Among the allegations is this one, that 5 million emails were deleted the day before the police met News International to discuss searching the system. Wow, I wonder if the police are involved at all. I wonder if there's any collusion that maybe, I don't know, like they could do an inquiry on, or, oh, wait, that was going to be Levinson 2, which was going to look into police collusion with editors, but Prime Minister David Cameron at the time decided it's not necessary. This is all to say that the Washington Post definitely hired Will Lewis knowing about these allegations. In fact, it could be because of these allegations that he was hired for things that he can do behind the scenes. Here's where the story got even more disturbing last week. Fulan Fick published a follow-up article for NPR about the Washington Post CEO, Will Lewis, trying to pressure his newsroom chief into killing stories about him and his relationship with Murdoch's media company. There were 2 stories that ran. And not only that, Fulan Fick knows of a quid pro quo that was floated because it was done to him. He was offered an exclusive interview with Will Lewis in order to kill the story that he planned on writing back in December of 2023. The ethical thing to do was to decline it, and Fulan Fick did just that. But also, he clearly has a juicier story on his hand. Makes me wonder if there's something else out there that Lewis does not want to have brought to light. You actually just made more news with your actions. And it's really not a stretch to imagine these kind of practices occurring regularly in the British media, especially when it comes to royal reporting. In fact, we have examples. Harbottle and Lewis, lawyers for Prince William, sent out letters to editors stopping any reporters from sniffing around a potential scandal among friends. Particularly, the Sun's showbiz editor Dan Wootton. As Omid Scobie alleges in his book Endgame, he was approached to give Dan Wootton the scoop, an exclusive on his first book, Finding Freedom, to try to give Dan something to get him off the scent of this potential other story. Scobie declined, but what did Dan Wootton, a showbiz editor, happen to break half a year later? Harry and Meghan's exit as working royals. And so when people ask me, why are you so obsessed with the royals? This is why. Obsessed with the media practices because nothing happens in a vacuum. Media malfeasance is just one example of how much the US and the UK have in common. It is incredibly concerning that the Washington Post, whose masthead has been since 2017, democracy dies in darkness. That is a warning, and it's also a call to action. Incredible that the paper that broke Watergate now has a man at its helm accused of massive cover-up for a media conglomerate and trying to use his new position to kill unflattering stories about himself. Globalization makes it impossible to view media corruption as a problem that can be contained to one country. It's simply easier to examine it through the lens of the British media and the British royal family, who have had decades and decades and decades of history to move through. If you want to go more in depth onto this, I just wrote about it for my Substack. The link is in the bio. Watch this space.